I have heard many voices in opposition to this bill, in many ways, and ideologically attached to their ideas, in that we should not be making parking easier for people, as this will further incentive car usage. However, members of the press do a special job, and it can be argued are often as important to have on the scene of an emergency as first responders, as information is key to the public. I would say this, however, parking abuse, regardless of who commits those abuses, remains rampant in New York City, particularly among those without valid permits who flout rules or use fake placards to secure a spot. This is why I believe we should work to pass Councilmember Garani's bill, Intro 320C, heard early this year, requiring a scannable barcode to easily check on a placard validity. It is also why included in this bill is the strict language that a member of the press must be covering a story if they are to park in an otherwise restricted space. We must clamp down on abuses of parking in New York City for all vehicles, including official city vehicles as well.
Council and our public advocates. I am Inspector Ydanis Fulton of the New York City Police Department Transportation Bureau. On behalf of Commissioner William J. Bratton, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to speak to you about two of the bills before you today, Intros 779 and 997. As you know, as part of the Vision Zero initiative, there is an intense and comprehensive focus within the administration and the police department on enhancing traffic safety and preventing death and injury on our streets. Notably, just 2 years after the administration initiated Vision Zero, 2015 was the safest year on record for pedestrians on New York City streets, with significant decreases in traffic and pedestrian fatalities since 2013, before this initiative was launched. Going forward, the police department continues to focus on effective traffic safety measures and remains dedicated to working with our partnering city agencies, advocates, community stakeholders, and the council to make our streets safe for all. Turning now to today's legislation, Intro 779 would permit certain members of the press to park where parking or standing is otherwise prohibited, except where standing or stopping is prohibited to all motor vehicles, and would exempt their vehicles from metered parking or time limit rules as well. These proposed rules would only apply if immediately before parking, the operator or any occupant of the vehicle is actually engaged in the covering of a news event or a matter of public concern. Lastly, the bill states that where any city agency has granted by sign any parking or driving privileges to vehicles with NYPD license plates, such privileges are extended only to press vehicles and on-duty emergency vehicles. While we recognize the need for members of the press to at times use a motor vehicle in the gathering of news, the administration respectfully opposes Intro 779 as currently drafted. As a threshold matter, the police department is concerned that it would be very difficult for a police officer or traffic enforcement agent in the field, after having observed a vehicle parked in a prohibited space or with an expired meter, to determine whether the vehicle is covering a legitimate news event or matter of public concern, and is thus parked legally. The bill provides no defining criteria as to what this term means. While some newsworthy events are obvious, for example, an emergency situation such as a large fire, other events are more subtle, and it is unclear how a police officer or TEA would be alerted of such an event and know not to ticket a specific vehicle. Furthermore, the bill goes beyond pressing news events to coverage of any matter of public concern, potentially encouraging the disregard of parking laws and meters even in situations where they do not pose an obstacle to coverage. The bill, as drafted, does not seem to provide for restriction of press vehicles from certain locations where emergency vehicles are permitted, potentially creating situations in which the press could be in danger or could impede public safety or emergency response. Lastly, the expansive exemption that Intro 779 provides has the potential to lead to abuses by those who seek to obtain unlimited parking privileges while on personal business. Additionally, the bill provides no guidance on what it means for a member of the press to be actually engaged in the covering of a news event or matter of public concern. For example, whether it would include working on a story from the press member's office or home, or a task like conducting a phone interview or researching an issue. In many instances, a police officer or TEA would likely have no way of confirming whether a press vehicle is actually engaged in covering an event or matter of public concern. This would present difficulties for police officers, TEAs, and members of the press themselves, who would also have to assess whether they are actually engaged in the covering of a news event or matter of public concern in order to remain compliant with the law. The notion that press vehicles should be allowed some kind of reasonable accommodation in order to perform their duties is not an illegitimate one, which is why, as a practical matter, the NYPD already affords accommodations to the press at the scene of actual breaking news incidents. In its current form, however, Intro 779 raises many concerns and poses practical and operational challenges for the police department.
No parking, what is there, no parking as a commercial vehicle. Those 2 end meters. So when during my time of working, I know that I'm allowed to park there. And my car has been told, in area that I know that the city say you as a council member have the right to park. In the last 3 weeks, 3 members who are doing the enforcement, I don't know for what reason, when I have my plaque in my car, abusing their rights, giving tickets, for whatever reason, for someone who is a council member. So when we keep talking about, the abuse, it's not, like, who can abuse? I can say that, we have the good and the bad apple everywhere. And I think that definitely whatever bill we can come with on the press parking bill, I hope that first of all, it is clear that it's for those men and women that they're doing the jobs. Second, for me, that argument, which is, it creates some challenges for the NYPD when they're doing the job. The bill doesn't say that anyone can park in double parking. The bill only says that people will be allowed when they're covering the story in the same area as a no parking, as in meter. And when the NYPD is doing the job, and there's a particular area that no one is allowed to get in, no even elected officials are allowed to get in. And we respect it and understand it. Because we know that at that moment, the men and women in the uniform, they are doing the job, and we are not allowed to do it. So, first, I'm happy that, that you're saying conversation can continue. But second, the argument, which is about we create challenges to the NYPD, what are the challenges that they create?
The state, NYP parking plates. So it was redundant to also give them the parking placard. So it suffices, it's redundant, and there's always an administrative cost on our end, and we felt that it was redundancy since they already are given NYP plates to the state, and that's why we disbanded it.
But teachers don't have a state plaque. I used to be a teacher for 13 years.
Right.
So, the rationale was getting rid of all the, and of course, like, first of all, someone has a goal, what I presented last year, to reduce the number of cars from 1.4 million New Yorkers that own cars like myself to 1 million. I'm not saying that we should bring more incentive for people to have cars. But what I'm saying is, if we are saying we are addressing transportation deficit throughout the 5 boroughs, there's no need for no one to have a car. No city employee, they will be driving the car, they will have any permit. No elected official with anyone. No people from the press have said, great city. Let's follow Portland and other cities that they are moving into a walkable city. And I hope that one day we will get there. But when it comes to a particular sector, or people that they're doing the job, they're covering the story. This bill, as far as I know, it doesn't call for allow people, the media, to go and park the car, interrupting the police officers to do their job.
With regard to how it currently works, and I've been to crime scenes and emergency situations, we have open dialogue with the press. I've actually had the press come to me and said, is it okay to park illegally in this spot? And of course, we understand the necessity for the press to have access to, not into the inner crime scene or to an emergency if they don't, but so they can do their job. So we have afforded them, through discretion, parking privileges. We're against formalizing the process as the language is written, and there's a lot of reasons for that, as I cited in my opening statement. But we do work with them, and we do afford them discretion at these scenes. And I personally can talk about, an open communication with them, and with the communication that's helpful at a scene, because if we do have to move the crime scene or the emergency lines back, I know who I spoke to that I can take and you move the van back. In planned events, we actually make accommodations. Say there's a parade, we actually discuss with the press beforehand and set up with barriers different spots that they can set up their equipment, realizing the necessity and the importance of their work.
But again, this is about restoring the rights of members of the press that I used to have, that the previous administration, as they also got rid of the teachers' parking, it was in the same period of time that they also got rid of the press parking. Which is the area that is in your concern, based on what this bill, where this bill will allow members of the press to park? In which area do you have issues for them not to be allowed to park? Because I will assume that we will not have issue if members of the press who is covering the story, they will be allowed to park when they say no parking, for them to be allowed meters. So in which area do you have that the NYPD has a major obstacle on challenges against this bill?
I think that, like I said, there are maybe, like we said, we can have further discussions with exactly what the bill means and how we can extend their parking privileges. But to answer your question, the bill is somewhat vague in where they can park and where they can't park and what regard. And another thing is with the outside states, with Connecticut and New Jersey, and we understand also that their press is important because it's a tri-state area, and we want to work with them too. And like I said, we have a certain discretion that we would afford to them. But as the bill is written, from my standpoint, I don't completely understand, how the TEA or the police officer would understand exactly how their vehicles would be identified and where they would be allowed to be parking it as the bill is written.
Great. I saw that, as someone that been working very close with many issues, I would say 99.9% of things that we'll be doing together. I know that we will continue working in that direction. I hope that, that again, we will continue the conversation. For me, I would never support anything that say, okay, member of the media, or me as a council member, you can park in double parking. This is about parking at meters. This is about parking at the no parking area. Certain area that, where they should be allowed to park the car when they cover in the story. So I just hope that we will, continue working. I don't recall right now, but I'm pretty sure that it's like more than 40 council members that have signed on this bill. If not 40, it's close to 40. So this is important for the majority of the council. And again, even though I've been asking those questions, but I also I know that we are in a good place at least when it comes to continue having conversation.
Okay, that's correct, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
The press would agree that the papers are being filled with stories, so they're getting some access.
Well, we can keep it civil here, please. But I think that question kind of lingers in the room right now. And I think I guess the only thing I want to say is that it's an important thing to have conversations. And so if you're not getting that, I know we have been getting that as an issue. And so we want to be helpful and legislate an appropriate response. So it'd be great if we can hear from you today that you will commit to having a direct conversation and a direct line to the press and organize. They will organize, I believe, and connect with you whatever languages, and I'm talking even about our ethnic press, and our immigrant communities being covered by so many different language newspapers and televisions. So all of that is to say, will you and can you really commit to opening up that line of conversation and understanding that and posing that question to them about how they might like to be identified and get some answers and questions and ideas from them?
I think, like I said, we're open to further discussion. The language in the bill, like I said, in certain circumstances make it impossible for us to do our job operationally. And getting back to what I was saying, that at the major events, we already provide, accommodations to the press. We go above and beyond to help them out. And then it seems, anecdotally, I can speak specifically to events that I've been at, that the press has come to me and asked to park illegally, which I've given discretion and I've done it, and I'm sure it's done by many of my colleagues. That's it. I mean, as far as, again, I get into the point that I think anybody would want their parking privileges extended. And the current format as it works does work for the NYPD. I mean, the press, obviously, they've just demonstrated that it isn't working for them 100%, but again, we're open for discussion at all times.
And I think that's where we started this conversation, and as co-sponsor of this bill, I want to make sure that we honor the process of legislation making, and really make sure that, or whatever we decide, it's not just a simple extension of the parking privilege, but really an opportunity for the core concept of press being able to take information and quickly disseminate it out into the world. And these are our partners that we both use in cases of emergency and crisis.
I agree. I think that the press has a job to do, and I think the police department has always worked with them and gave accommodations to them. And again, we'll act in a professional manner, when the circumstances dictate, and we will work with them like we always do.
It's about being sure that the men and women who are covering the story, that the public expect, they will be informed to be able to have the tools they need. So, let's be clear on this one, that we're not talking about privilege, it's about a right that we would like to be restored. Because as far as we know, as far as I know, I don't think it's different unless there's a different information. I don't think that the previous administration did a study about this before getting rid of this parking lot.
I don't understand the question, sir.
Did the previous administration conduct any study before taking the decision to get rid of the right of people, members of the media, to have plaque?
Well, I think that, like I said, it was more of it was part of an overall policy to reduce the placards, but with regard to the press, there was a redundancy issue. They were already getting state-issued plates, so I think the administration felt that having both the plaque.
What about teachers?
Excuse me?
What about teachers?
I wasn't involved in it was in 2009, I wasn't involved in that policy decision, so I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't know.
But I can tell you that as a witness, we didn't have a state plaque. So, and again, this current administration, my question is, did the previous administration conduct any study? And therefore, as a result, they make a decision to get rid of permit for the media or for members of the media to have the right to park when they're covering the story.
I'd have to get back to you. What their level of analysis was, I don't know. Okay. I'd have to get back to you on that.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Ydanis.
Thank you guys for being here. Extremely excited about Coffee NYC, and I'll get to that in a few seconds. But Commissioner, you said two things that I wanted to get a response to. You said these placards, the way currently as written, if the law moves forward, I wanted to ask, how did it function operationally before, when they had access to these placards? I could imagine that the police was still doing its job to a certain extent. I just want to know the difference between now and then. Or then, and what would happen under this law that would be different?
I would say that there was a fix there. I mean, operationally, it probably was imperfect then, and maybe they fixed it. Again, I'm supposing a little bit, but I can specifically answer this bill, and I can give you an example. If I was a traffic agent and I came upon a vehicle with NYPD plates, I would not know if there was, in many circumstances, whether there was a news event or a matter of public concern going on. So that's operationally how would the traffic agent or police officer know that was happening at that specific time. And essentially, they could issue the summons incorrectly or not issue the summons when they should have.
Okay, I wanted to ask another one. You said that the previous administration felt the need to remove the placards. And I just want to say I don't think the previous administration felt very much. They might have believed something, but felt not so much. They do everything, I believe, the way Councilman Ydanis talked about, through some type of study. There had to be some type of evidence, some type of data to support the need to remove placards. In general, whether they're, right now we have information regarding fake placards and the work that we have to do to fix that. And there's actual information that lets us know that that's a big problem. We just really want to start working on information that is real. We need data to support any case that you might have against them. And if you don't, if what you're saying is that the language currently written isn't exactly what you want it to be, but given some changes in the language that you would support it, is that what I'm hearing?
I think we're in agreement that the press has an important job to do. So we would consider,
Okay, so I'm excited to see that conversation happen and the dialogue happen so we can start moving forward. Obviously, you have concerns as it is written right now, as the law is written right now, but given some conversations, we could get to a point where...
That's possible, yes.
Okay, because the NYPD, by the way, has supported 0 pieces of legislation in regards to any changes that we would like to make here in the City Council, ever. It's been 3 years since somebody from the NYPD stood here and said, we support this legislation.
Well, I think we just the right-of-way law, we just supported it, so that's the first.
The right-of-way law?
Good morning, council members. 7 years ago, without any notice or warning, nor any opportunity of due process, the New York City Police Department...
Sir, can you please state your name?
Oh, Bruce Koppler, President, New York Press Photographers Association. Okay. 7 years ago, without any notice or warning or any opportunity of due process, the New York City Police Department stopped issuing press photographers and broadcast vehicle placards to members of the media, allowing them to park at news stories, a privilege we had routinely since 1946. We received no hearing, no recourse. At the time, the Bloomberg administration was cutting the number of placards throughout the city, but the VA was the only group to have 100% of its placards taken away. These vehicle cards allowed still and video cameramen and radio reporters to park while covering news stories and commercial parking and no parking zones in the city. We did not have the right to park in no standing, specially designated areas like handicap and taxi zones, or at fire hydrants and crosswalks. Over time, because of the need for the NYPD to expand these vehicle permits to certain members of the writing press as well. We understand that the city did not by law have to provide these placards, but we believe we should have at least been provided with some due process when they were withdrawn. The media has been left with NYP plates, issued after review of the applicant's credentials by the state, which under current law only allows those vehicles to park in NYP designated locations. This has been anything but workable, because often other vehicles that have no legal right to park in these zones, and there is little to no enforcement. More importantly, NYP zones rarely have anything to do with where news stories are occurring. Frequently, there is no legal parking for NYP vehicles at news stories. Last year's 2nd Avenue explosion is one example that comes to mind. There isn't an NYP designated location for more than a mile. Since the elimination of the vehicle cards, media vehicles covering news stories across the city have had to rely on the discretion of the NYPD and its agents to allow us to park at important events. It is basically an officer's whim if a media vehicle is subject to ticket and tow. With very little choices beyond finding a parking garage or an NYP zone, if available, media organizations are forced to cope with parking as an additional impediment to news gathering and exercising First Amendment freedoms. We believe access to news stories is a First Amendment issue and goes to the heart of covering news. Our ability to get to news events is dependent upon our vehicles. Our vehicles are our mobile offices and carry tens of thousands of dollars in equipment. Television trucks can be valued up to $500,000 in gear. And it is almost always necessary to be parked at or near news stories so that vital information to the public good is distributed in a timely manner. This is not only necessary for the free press, but as a public safety issue of providing the public with information that might need in the event of a public emergency. The media industry is the only business in New York City which cannot park as a commercial vehicle. Federal Express or Amazon have more rights to park their vehicles than do ABC, NBC, the Daily News, the New York Post, the New York Times, and other media. All provide a service to the public, but only press vehicles denied this privilege. You may ask why not just change NYP plates to commercial plates? This is very difficult as it would require action by the governor and the legislature, and there are insurance issues involved that would complicate the matter. Furthermore, media would then not be able to use the many highways in the area that ban commercial plates from the roadways, limiting it in a different way or ability to freely gather news. We are asking for commercial parking to be extended to press vehicles to park while on assignment. We want to stress that we understand that this is a privilege, and this is not parking for going to lunch, visiting the museum with the family, or private parking for a resident. When we had a vehicle card, we had an arrangement with the Department of Finance and their Adjudication Bureau to ensure that those who abuse this privilege were fined. Our organization monitored summonses issued, and where patterns of abuse were identified, we took action to stop such abuse. We fully expect that if this bill is passed, we can work again with the departments to prevent abuse and adjudicate fairly any ticket that might be issued in error. We understand that the vehicle cards in the past and the NYPD parking under this bill have the potential to be abused. This is the case with any privilege granted by the city. In the past, we believe abuse was very, very rare, and we are absolutely committed in preventing it in the future. Currently, the many placards issued by the city agencies are subject to the same abuse pressures as far outnumbers media vehicles. We understand that the NYPD alone has around 35,000 permits. Our impact in this total picture is like a grain of sand in a gallon jug. We understand there may be some concern that this bill would increase vehicle traffic. This is absolutely not the case. As a result of changes in the procedure and rules by the NYPD, it is now more difficult to obtain a press card than 7 years ago, and the card is a requirement for obtaining NYP plates on a private vehicle, and only vehicles owned by stations and news organizations can qualify without it. In the 5 boroughs to get an NYP plate, one must pass muster with both the NYPD and the Department of Motor Vehicles, and those vehicles owned by news organizations have become far and fewer as a result of budget cuts. As a result of these changes, we believe that there is substantially fewer NYP plates in the metropolitan area. It is important to stress whether or not this bill is passed, it will not impact the number of NYP vehicles working in New York City. It only forces the media organizations to rely on the discretion and goodwill of the NYPD as a duty and obligation to cover the news, and most of us do not have any alternative but to continue as we have for the last 7 years, to put our vehicles wherever we can, legally or not. The proposed legislation will give us the legal right to do what we have already been doing. In addition, there is a financial impact on many of our self-employed members because of changes in the industry. Most news photographers are no longer staff, but independent small business owners struggling to make ends meet as freelance or contract photographers. Often they make a flat rate when expenses are not paid. Paying a ticket is for doing their job can cut their income in half on a given day. In summary, I believe we have a First Amendment right of access to news events, and the proposed legislation will help to address this issue. We believe it should not be up to law enforcement to decide whether a news event is legitimate. We urge the City Council to support the work of an unfettered free press that is vital to our city and our future. I want to thank Councilman Ydanis Rodriguez for introducing the bill, and Speaker Melissa Martin-Garrido and the rest of the council for their consideration today.
Mr. Chairman and members of the City Council, my name is Steve Scott. I am the president of the New York Press Club, and today I speak on behalf of the thousands of men and women who make up the New York City Press Corps. We come from all platforms of journalism: print journalism, broadcast journalism, online journalism. We are the public's lifeline to information on stories big and small at all hours of the day and night. And many of these fine journalists are in this room today. For many journalists who cover the news in this city, our vehicle is our office. It's our newsroom on wheels. Journalists go to where the news is breaking. But it is becoming increasingly difficult for us to do our jobs. The number of NYP parking spaces reserved for working journalists is dwindling. There are simply fewer and fewer press parking spaces available. Intro 779 can help. Allowing NYP plated vehicles to park in available commercial zone spaces would allow working journalists to better do our jobs, which is to tell stories that are important to the public. Mr. Chairman, let me make it clear, our members are not looking for some sort of a perk. Inspector Fulton calls it extended parking privileges. We all want extended privileges. Let me say it again, sir. This is not about a perk. This is about allowing working journalists to more efficiently relay information to the people of New York City, potentially saving lives. We can't do that if we're circling the block looking for a place to park. Allowing NYP plated vehicles to use available commercial zone spaces would help immensely. Mr. Chairman, it's ironic, I think, that a working journalist rolling up to a breaking news story, a story of great importance to the people of New York, cannot park in a commercial zone, but a plumber unclogging a sink across the street can. Now, journalists, like plumbers, are professional tradesmen and women, and we could probably come up with some apt analogies about leaks and clogs and how they all go together. Just like plumbers need parking access on their assignments, so do journalists. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the City Council, on behalf of the New York Press Club and the New York journalism community, I do ask you, please allow us to better do our jobs by advancing Intro 779. And Mr. Chairman, I thank you, sir, for your leadership on this issue.
Hello, how are you? I'm Hector Rios, and I'm from CBS News. I'm the manager of E&G Operations, that's electronic news gathering. And thank you, Chair Rodriguez and Councilmember Menchaca, for having us today. I hope also the car-free NYC is awesome. I think it's a great, I hope we can cover it, because I hope we can get some vehicles in there from our side and cover the news. It's just a shame also, though, that the officer left. I think he would have been able to hear all of our concerns right here and have been able to bring that back to his superiors. And it's really unfortunate he left, and I hope we can actually create a dialogue with them. But if that's any indication, I hope it's not an indication, but I hope we can actually come to some sort of agreement with them. Just wanted to come in and as CBS News here, we represent, the CBS This Morning, CBS Evening News, Scott Pelley, the 60 Minutes, 48 Hours, the Saturday morning show, and the weekend news. That's the kind of organization that we have and we represent. And oftentimes, as I was talking to my photographer here, Rob Smolenoff, that it's just nearly impossible, to find parking in the city. As it is right now, he's just hoping he doesn't get a ticket just being here advocating on behalf of CBS News. And it's that's the kind of reality that we have. And like I said before, it's impeding our ability to cover the news. considering also that we have, like you said, $500,000, worth of equipment in our vehicles, if that ever gets towed, we're missing out on a day and a half of news. So with the dozen or so of crew vehicles that we do have in the city, that's going to impede our ability to further cover those news stories that are up and coming. So, you know, it's excellent speech on behalf of my two predecessors here. I'm not even going to the First Amendment and all those things, but I think that's absolutely important and tantamount to this particular convening right now. That we have to protect that, and I think you're helping us in a large part by allowing us to entertain the thought of this bill to increase our privileges for the press. Thank you.
You drove?
No.
Oh yeah, I took the subway. I didn't want to get a ticket. Can you hear me right? Good afternoon. Peter McGowan, News Operations Manager of WCBS Channel 2 News. I'm the guy in charge of the news vans, among other things. It's a position I've held at WCBS for 11 years. Before that, similar capacity positions at WNBC, WPX, CNN, never ABC. For some reason, they never wanted to hire me. I don't know why. But I know how to cover breaking news in particular. A couple of 3 or 4 years ago, typical, you get a notification, 9 in the morning, get up to the Bronx, 11 o'clock. NYPD has locked up a serial predator, a rapist. They got him off the street. There's going to be a news conference at 11. They'll have a photo opportunity. They'll move the suspect. You guys get it done at noon, get up here. So we get up there. And our folks, they cover it. They go inside, they do the news conference, and they get the photo, etc. We get outside, vehicle's gone. Got towed. And we lost our opportunity to get that information out to the public as quickly as we should. Now, that's not anything on the order of some of the other things, obviously, that we've covered here, but that's really the crux of what our problem is. On the big jobs, the crane collapses and all the other stuff, there are enough people from Police Plaza and people that we know on a regular basis where we get together and we work. But that's not what the issue is here. The issue is routine covering of the routine stories. The very police department that asked us to come and cover that rapist off the street, which is an important story. You get his photo out there, you get the information out there, maybe there are other victims, or, oh, that's the guy, and that kind of thing. That very police department, a division of that department, towed us, and we could not cover our story. And I had to go, to the pound and get the vehicle out, and it's 6-7 hours of work that I couldn't do otherwise. So while I understand the inspector's concerns about possible abuses, there's got to be a happy medium, and I'm encouraged, and I thank the committee that they're willing to advance this and have those open discussions. I agree with my colleague Hector here that I wish the inspector had stayed to hear us, and I actually followed him out before to offer to further that dialogue, and I would like to sit at any table and have that conversation. There is a way to do this. But right now the way is we're getting hit with summonses, we're getting hit with boots, we're getting hit with tows, and it's not to take our families to dinner. It's to get the information out to the public, and then it's being dead stopped in some cases, in a lot of cases. Thank you.
I'm happy to hear even from the transportation alternative their position, because this is something that we will agree, and especially coming from a transportation advocate group. Not having any issue, as an important transportation advocate that we have in the city. So I think that those things that Paul highlight with abuses of people, like parking in certain area, the crosswalk, those are things that that no one should do. And we know who is the one that usually do in our city. Who are those people that park in those places when they are not working, that they are abusing their right. So having a conversation with you and others, we know that when we're talking about restoring the right of men and women from the press that have the right to park the car when they're doing the job. And we're talking about parking in specific location. This is not parking whatever people want. And I think that, hearing from the administration, at least even though they didn't come in full support, and I personally don't agree with the argument that they made, but at least I think that we can see some door open to continue the conversation. Hopefully, we can be able to sit down, to keep working, be sure that we end it with a good bill, which should be good for the press, and that also where the administration and all of us should be able to say, we can work with you. Question. Before I ask a question, myself is
Right here.
you covered because I called you, right? If you want to
Good. Well, they had 4 seats.
No, you give me the organization a chance, so I can put you in this panel. Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine.
So what do members of the press about discontinuing the right of members of the press to be able to park when your members were doing their jobs? Were you engaged in any conversation? Are you aware of any study done by the previous administration before they made that decision?
It was word of mouth, basically. We were told that there was an informal capacity, there was no meeting, and we weren't told of any studies. But if I may, just one thing on what you said before in terms of fire hydrants and bus stops, there's some self-policing that goes on there for 2 reasons. One, if we park in a fire hydrant or a bus stop or a crosswalk, we might actually cause a worse story than the one we're there to cover, and we would become part of that story if somebody got hurt. So there's definitely self-policing that goes on there. And in the past couple of years, social media. If there's a WCBS news truck parked in front of a fire hydrant, there's nothing going on, and something burns, trust me, we'll be all over Twitter and in a really bad way. So that just to address that point, it's a valid concern, but it's not something that we're not aware of and concerned about at all times. But in terms of how we found out, my colleagues can jump in here, but it was never formal as far as I was concerned. We were just told we're not getting anything.
I believe we were just told.
Yeah.
But based on your knowledge, there was not, you don't have any copy of any study done by the previous administration saying, based on this assessment that we made, we have arrived to this decision.
We were told the Bloomberg administration wanted to get rid of placards, and it wasn't just for the press as well. It was even for police officers, the ones that come from out of town or live in the suburbs, what have you, and they would put placards on to park outside the precincts. They were losing them too. It was one big doing away with placards, and we got caught up in it.
Great.
There was never any consultation with us. They said, oh, we're going to get to it. We have a lawsuit that we're dealing with, and that was total baloney. Had nothing to do with the placards. The mayor decided we're going to get rid of placards, and he decided we're going to get rid of some of these, but we're going to get rid of all the press. We're going to get rid of all of them because, they must be the same. They have plates, but the plates only entitle you to park in an NYP zone. There is no other legality to park anywhere else.
Sorry. Any other question?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the panel. I guess I have two different questions, and I'll start with the specifically 779 and the work that we're trying to do here and legislate this very important topic. And clearly, it's broken. Whatever we're doing now is broken. You heard the inspector talk about engaging. Have you ever engaged with the NYPD in a productive way, either through the club, the press club, or individually? In an organized fashion? Tell me that's happened in the past.
The last time we had a meeting with them was a year and a half ago.
And them being the administration or?
With Stephen Davis, Deputy Commissioner of Public Information, with Gene White, and I think there was one other person in that room. Chief Chan was there. So he was his boss. Right.
What was the date of that?
That was November of 2014.
Okay. So we're due for another conversation.
Yeah, so since November, and I'm the liaison to the police department from the NYPD, I've been asking them just for a meeting for myself to talk about these variety of issues. And the answer is, we're too busy. We're too busy. And I say, we have issues that we need to discuss. We're too busy. Well, here they are. They come in the room and they say, well, here's the things that we think are wrong with this bill. But wait a second. well, you're a little late to the game, aren't you? We have this bill, we've been asking to talk to you, but they've refused us. It's very disappointing.
Well, under the leadership of the chair.
And mind you, I have a very good relationship with the police. I work with them day in, day out. Anybody that knows me, I'm an old mayhem. That's what I do. So I'm there, wherever it is. They know me. I have a great relationship with the chief, with all the top chiefs. They all know who I am, and they give me even more. But DCPI, for whatever reason, has decided, well, we don't need to call.
Got it. So noted. And I think the question here is, and really again under the leadership of the chair and just this city council, we want to remove those jams of communication. I think when we can remove those jams of communication for whatever reason, there's never a good reason to stop communicating if we want to get and resolve a problem. So I think as a member of the Transportation Committee working with the chair, let's see if we can fix that and get a room together and have a real conversation. And so we're committed to that. Second, on car-free NYC, I know CBS, you were talking a little bit about, wish we could cover it and drive into this place. Have you all, and can I challenge you all as the press, to think about your vehicles and then think about non-vehicular coverage in a place where you can plan it and actually maybe put, because I'm excited about NYPD bicycle coverage, and then maybe think about mobile ways, non-vehicle ways to go and cover places. Is it a technology issue? And really create these car-free zones so that you can still be there and do all your work. I see some excitement over here. I don't know if you're going to show me a picture of a bike with the whole setup. What do you got?
If I may, from a broadcast TV standpoint, that's a technological conversation that we don't have time for here. The short answer is very difficult. If you wanted to have a separate offline conversation.
Well, wait, I couldn't hear that. I couldn't completely hear that. What did you say?
From a broadcast TV standpoint, particularly with the standards of today, the short answer, and it's not a firm answer, but the short answer is no. It's just too difficult. First of all, news is not planned. We need to be able to go like that, and our viewers.
But Car NYC, we have some time.
For an event like this, it's possible, but it's not without its pitfalls.
I'm not talking about crisis. I'm not talking about something happened.
But even this, the goal is to make sure you get the best possible product on TV. And again, it is a technological discussion that Hector and I particularly live and breathe all day. That
I think
we could tell you more about, but there's a clock behind you there that's clicking through. So.
Wonderful, and I don't want to talk about it necessarily completely here, but I'm excited about the idea of getting more information out. And I get broadcast quality is important, but Periscope and other ways that our iPhones can get information out, and even the clarity of things. People are less concerned about the quality sometimes, so they can get the content. And this is good content we need to get to all our communities. I talked about our immigrant community, getting it in their languages. So let's think differently. Let's challenge ourselves here, both to open up the lines of communication with NYPD and then think about these concepts and changing the way you do what you do, because we're asking everybody to change what they do in the city of New York for something like this, car-free years.
Well, come up to CBS, we'll give you the tour.
I love that. And CBS and wherever. Thank you.
What I just want to show you is, this is the inside of my vehicle. This is just the driver's seat.
What are we looking at? Can you
Bring it closer.
Okay, got it. Okay, I see a steering wheel. I see a laptop. Okay, got it. This is your car. This is the vehicle.
This is my car. This is the one that's sitting out front. If you went out there, you'd see this. This is exactly what you see.
If you want to get back to your mic so we can all hear it.
Also see that there's...
Sorry, to speak on the mic.
If you can go back to your mic, that way we can all hear it. Thank you so much.
You'd also see the inside of the trunk is, and that's also for the broadcast vehicles. They also have secure boxes where they keep all their gear in. And you don't just show up with one or two cameras. Sometimes I keep 4 in my car, because if something goes wrong with my equipment, I have to be able to go to something else, and so do they. And so they have one camera. No. How many cameras you have in your car?
I can't reveal.
And that's just it. So I have a truckload of equipment, and I carry this all the time. Any day that somebody came to me and said, well, what's in your vehicle? What are you carrying that you need to drive around? Well, that is it. Now, as for car-free New York City, I love the concept. It's great. I mean, yeah, we need to reduce the number of vehicles in this city. There are people that are going to the theater and going to the park, and they're driving, and they're parking, and they do whatever they want. And then some people have these placards, and they park. And so that's what they do. Yeah, it'd be better if more people could drive. If few people were driving to the city to do this. We have days where you shouldn't be driving at all. Go try to drive around during the New York City Marathon. You're never going to be able to do that. Or during the Fibro Bike Tour. I try not to go anywhere when that's going on, except to where I need to go to cover my stories. Most of us are doing more than just car-free New York City that day, though. I'm going to go and cover the homicide in the morning, and then later on the fire, and then I'm going to go to maybe the city and cover car-free New York City and do that. And then I'm doing another story after that. It's multiple things that go on, and we're carrying a lot of gear, it's very difficult to, some people actually do use the trains. They have a different purpose, they work a little different. Maybe they can't afford a car, and they find ways to work that out. But most of us, we have to have that vehicle to be mobile and to do the stories that we need to do.
Well, thank you for sharing that sense of humanity for the work you do.
Councilman Fulton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad we're finally raising this issue, to the forefront, because it's been many years, and I heard from a lot of, reporters, people who are covering that they lost this parking for their vehicle. Now, the NYPD was here earlier, and then they were saying that, we set up specific area just for the media. Can you address that in terms of like the area that they set aside for the NYP zone? How effective it is, and is it really helpful or not?
Yeah, we'll try to make this quick, but there are grades of stories. It's kind of what I was talking about before. If you have, for lack of a better, big job going on, yeah, that happens. Okay? It's we all know what to do. The crane collapse is a good example. Everybody gets where they have to go. The emergency response develops to figure out what it is. And DCPI comes down, and we know those folks, and they start to set things up, and they work with us, and they're terrific. One person in particular I mentioned before, Lieutenant Gene White, when he's there, from my experiences, it goes great. He knows what we need, I know what they need, etc. The problem is they're not all big jobs, and I'm more here for the 7 tickets I get a week on routine stories, and a lot of them are commercial no standing. And if the Coca-Cola truck can be there without getting a summons, how come I can't be? Nothing against Coca-Cola. It is vital to the lifeblood of many a business. But they're not in the emergency business, and we are. So in terms of, and it's something else that was discussed before about the press plates. The press plates don't do very much. They allow you to park in NYP zones, and as we all know, the news happens 99.999% of the time nowhere near an NYP zone. The NYP plate that Albany gives us is actually great for getting access in extreme circumstances. Like on 9/11, for example, the only plates that were getting into the city were NYP plates. So they are vital. I'm not playing those down. But in terms of the routine, day-to-day, needing to, like for what I said before about the South Bronx and that police press conference, that should have allowed us trouble-free to cover that story, and it did not. So that's the best answer I can give you. They're not the big jobs. Got it. But they're not all big jobs. That's the issue.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
We just hope again that we will be able to continue working together as soon as possible to see with the administration. I hope that we can move forward on this. Again, this is not about that we are creating anything new. This is something that the press have been writing for. This is not a city where we can say there's no other sector that they don't have a placard. We do. And I can tell you that those of us on the council that we have a plaque, we know exactly where we can park, and we know when we cannot park. And sometimes even though because some from traffic on NYPD, they have to give a number of ticket. They give the ticket regardless if we are parking in an area that we have the right to park. But if that happened to us, nothing can be done more than now that we have to be wasting the time to explain to them that we were using the plaque for the right purpose. However, if by any chance, any council member will park a car where they say no standing, no one can talk to the NYPD or no one, or any of the agents say, oh, can we try to see what we can do? Because we are not allowed to park where they say no standing. So, following what you already have said, what we are talking about is that providing the rights, restoring the rights of the press in the city who do the job, covering a story that sometimes we like, sometimes we don't, but it is the right of New Yorkers to be informed. And there's places in Queens and Brooklyn that people gotta walk 10, 15, 20 blocks from the train, from the bus. And I think it is unfair to expect that someone that is covering a story in those locations, there we have a situation where he or she doesn't have the tool to go and do the job. So thank you for your leadership, and we will continue working together with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing, I'm sorry. I'm just curious, how many people here are from the press today? Okay, I just wanted to just kind of thank you so much for coming today, and I guess a lot of this is, a lot of freelancers I'm assuming as well, and their lifeline depends on this parking program, so thank you very much. NYPPA, I'm also a freelance public journalist, and I want to thank Councilman Rodriguez, Councilwoman Chen, and the rest of the committee. I'm going to boil it down a little bit. We've had some good testimony from our other members, some other members of the press. And just a couple of points on the issue of abuse has come up a number of times from various people who have testified. And I'd like to say that if someone is given or receives an MIP plate, it's through a process where they've proven they're a bona fide member of the press, they've worked, it's an application process, they get these plates, and it's not an easy thing to do. And they're really used, they're really meant to be specifically for working. And as far as parking in press zones, it's not always possible to use the press zones because of others who abuse them that aren't using actual NYP plates. But given that problem, if there was an ability for traffic agents, who by the way, in my experience with traffic agents is if they're working in a particular area, they're in contact with vehicles very quickly. They know their streets, they know their areas, and it seems within 10, 15 minutes, they know if there's a car that's been there or hasn't been there. So I think there is I think they have a better observation of their areas than we might think. But a good for instance would be in the wake of the terror issues in Belgium 2 weeks ago, or the last 2 weeks. The NYPD commissioner and the mayor's office called a press conference or a press event at Times Square. And it was really something to sort of set solidarity for the city in the wake of the issue. But the point is that for everyone to get there and for everyone to park there, it would have probably taken NYP plates to be in places that normally there would not be an NYP zone. It would have been the only way to cover that event. And this is just one small example. This perhaps goes to these small versus the bigger stories, but there are just times when we need places to park, and commercial zones would be a perfect one, and having an NYP plate, which has been issued by the state of New York, to me signifies this is an official vehicle. Thanks very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Nicholas. I'm a working press photographer in New York City. I'd like to just draw the committee's attention to the bigger picture, as it were. Most of the time, the police are partners with the press in terms of facilitating access to a story. But on many occasions, that is not the case. On many occasions, the police are downright hostile to the members of the press. And it is this hostility to which I wish to draw attention. It's no surprise that the police department would oppose parking placards from members of the press, given their hostility, particularly with respect to breaking news events. Chairman Rodriguez, you yourself personally witnessed this during the eviction of Zuccotti Park protesters, when you and other members of the press were not allowed through a police line in order to witness firsthand the events occurring inside the park. On other occasions, members of the NYPD have ordered or asked, whatever term you choose, photographers to delete pictures. On other occasions, members of the NYPD have assaulted and fabricated charges against members of the press. This occurred under Commissioner Kelly and continues to occur. I would just like to draw the council's attention to that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Joe Marino, and up until December of last year, I was a staff photographer at the Daily News. I'm a freelancer now, and I was also a weekend assignment editor there. And to speak to the previous point made by Councilman Ydanis, the idea of assigning carless photographers or videographers or reporters to otherwise pre-planned news events is something that's already been going on. I made it a priority when assigning a photographer to a news job of assigning a photographer who did not have a car. However, this isn't always a possibility. You have one photographer who's on for one shift, and you may have to move him from Washington Heights to Staten Island because there's a breaking news event. The claims, the opposition to the intro on the part of the New York City Police Department is dubious, if not uninformed. The operational functionality of the New York City Police Department is not affected by this bill. It is not emboldening people to drive differently, to park differently, recklessly, or without regard. It simply removes a substantial financial punitive burden on otherwise self-employed people who are losing 80% of their day rate, which is what they work for. They work for a day rate with a $165 parking ticket for going to an event that you here in the City Council may very well invite us to. In places like East New York or Geneva, Queens, where there are no NYPD zones, where there's no restaurant team. And the integrity and abuse issue is also kind of bogus, because quite frankly, I don't see the New York City Police Department calling for the City Council to audit, review, or otherwise, look into, study the abuse of part of violence as it stands now. So to put photographers, otherwise self-employed journalists, at a financial disadvantage the way they are is simply not called for, and it's not grounds for opposition to this intro. Thank you.
Thank you.